Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I am finally back in my normal habitat and today we're going to be talking about spooky, cozy, atmospheric books for autumn. I love doing seasonal reading. Sometimes it's not possible for me because I'm trying to do things like read for prizes or other challenges or doing other things in my TBR, but I actually love when I get the chance to do some really seasonal reading. And one of the best seasons to do seasonal reading for is autumn. There are so many books that just hit so much better when you're reading them as it starts to get darker in the evenings, it gets colder, it's rainy, all the leaves are turning colours. And just in general, autumn is just such a fun, cozy time to be reading because it's also cozy, but it's also atmospheric and it's also spooky. So today I thought I would just do an old-fashioned recommendation video for you. I've got 10 different books here that I want to recommend you. Books and also authors as well, and this is just to be able to enhance your seasonal reading. I've got 3 main categories. We are doing some spooky books, although not a lot of these are straight horror reads. I think there's other channels that are better at recommending straight horror books if that's your thing. I do like some kind of spooky, scary elements within books, but I don't read that much that are straight horror. We also have the other categories, which are atmospheric books, so not outrightly scary books, but just give you a very autumnal atmospheric read, whether it's the setting or the writing or something that's going on in the book. And then finally we'll also be talking about some cozy books, but cozy not just in the sense of kind of like fluffy cozy kind of like books like that. It's more cozy in the autumnal sense as well. So it's still a little bit atmospheric, still a little bit maybe spooky, but kind of more on the cozy side. So let's kick this off and start off with the spooky reads. I want to start off with probably one of the scarier books on this list, even though it's not super scary, but it's actually a short story collection. And I read this a couple of years ago, and it's the first short story collection that I read that I fell in love with. And so I really want to talk about it today. And that book is Cursed Bunny. This one is so good. There are so many short stories in this that genuinely gave a shiver down my spine, and they're weird, they're spooky, they're very chilling. And this was actually longlisted or no, shortlisted for the International Booker Prize back in 2022. And this is by a Korean author. So in this book are a blend of, I would say, there's magical realism in there, there is sci-fi elements, but there's also a strong horror element within these short stories. I absolutely love this short story collection, and I actually really want to reread it as well. So many of the stories in this are so creepy in the sense of kind of an unreality, but also within the story itself that's just full of so many surprises. You don't know where they're going to end, and I absolutely loved reading this. I read it actually all kind of in one, well, maybe 2 or 3 sittings. I didn't just pick up one story and then put it down again. I had to just keep reading because they were just so much fun, even though they were really scary. And some of them really they're not gross, but there is one particular one in my that stuck out in my mind that is quite there's some body horror in this, or just certain grotesque elements also. If you're super sensitive to that, then maybe look up which story that is and skip it. But in general, I absolutely love this short story collection. This is good. This is just going to be an absolutely great one to read during October. If you want to read some spooky reads around Halloween, around October, then definitely pick this one up. I can't obviously tell you too much detail about these short stories because they're all completely individual, but just to say, give this one a go. It's really fun, and also spooky and scary. Next up, we actually have a young adult book, and I don't often recommend young adult books, but this one just really stood out to me. And it is spooky, scary, also atmospheric, but it's also kind of a coming of age story, which also a lot of coming of age stories do definitely have a spooky element to them as well. It's often a trope that's used within horror stories, is puberty and coming of age, that kind of thing. And it's done really well in this book, which is Chlorine. Firstly, just has an absolutely stunning cover, which I really adore. But this is about a girl called Ren who is obsessed with swimming and being on her swim team. She loves swimming to the point of complete obsession. She loves being in the pool. She loves chlorine. She will do anything to be the best swimmer that she can be because she has a secret kind of longing to one day transform herself into the best swimmer that she can be. This one is creepy and it's got increasing tension throughout the story as you're following Ren as she like devolves into this obsession. It's also a story about sapphic longing and puberty. It's also the story of being from an immigrant family within America and trying to fit in with the American ideal. This one is really, really well written as well. The way that you're given certain information, and I just really enjoyed the writing. I read it super, super quickly, and definitely one that is good for anyone looking for a spooky read as well. So that one's a good one to read if you want something fast-paced, young adult. It's not really a thriller, but I would say it does read in that thrillery kind of way. So yeah, that is Chlorine. Highly recommend that one. Next up, we have one that is more of a classic thriller, and I very rarely recommend thrillers because I often don't like them that much. I find them a little bit boring and a little bit formulaic. That is absolutely not the case with this one, and that is Push by Ashley Audrain. I don't know where I've put the dust jacket for this one. I will find the cover somewhere and put it on the screen, but this one I read and was just absolutely entranced with it. I don't know what about this one like specifically really worked for me as a thriller, other than it being really well written and just having this really gripping element, but I absolutely love this one. This is about a woman who gives birth to a baby girl and then is kind of slowly becoming convinced that there is something wrong with her child. Obviously that trope has been done before, especially in horror, but this was just such a good psychological drama about this woman who is new to motherhood, and it's just really not exactly how she imagined, and it's about her relationship with this child and with her husband. You're constantly being forced to guess in this story whether it's just her new mother kind of hormones going out of control, or if there really is something that is unusual about this child. Just as well as being a really well written, fast-paced psychological thriller, this also had so many themes in it that I just love to read in my stories anyway, about the difficulties of motherhood and that decision, intergenerational trauma also being passed down, and whether you can break these kind of intergenerational curses around motherhood. But honestly, just what it had going for it most is how like unputdownable this book is. People always say that about different thrillers, but I really, really felt that way about The Push, and can highly, highly recommend it if you want something spooky, scary, thriller, like a classic thriller mystery story. So definitely recommend this one. Okay, so next up, I'd be remiss to talk about spooky atmospheric books and not talk about at least a couple of classics. So I'm gonna choose just one of my favorites to read around this time of year, and that of course is the original gothic horror Dracula. This is my absolutely gorgeous copy of Dracula that I love so much. I've never actually read from this copy because I don't know, I just feel like I would completely ruin it. But it's got these very cool page inserts for the letters that are in Dracula. This one is just an absolute classic. I think if you've not read it, then definitely give it a try around this time of year. I think that you would be surprised by how readable this one is for a classic as well. It's actually also a lot funnier than people think it is, and I got a lot more of the humor of the book on the second reading, whether intentional or not intentional. But this is obviously the original, well, not quite the original, because I think Carmilla was the original. This is one of the most well-known vampire stories in the world, but it's not really about the vampires so much. It's about basically this group of friends who are working together and trying to protect the world from this vampire. It's also actually mostly about the kind of sexual tension that is going on with the vampires in this world. Vampires are used in a way as kind of these temptations, but also to represent this sexual freedom that wasn't available to people at this time in a very repressed society. It's such a fun book. Obviously it is still a classic, but I think it's just so incredibly readable. I did actually reread this one a couple of years ago with the Daily Dracula kind of emails that were going, like, did anybody remember Daily Dracula, where basically you would get an email in your inbox every day and it was Dracula but as if it was reordered so it happened chronologically, because obviously there's letters in this, there's scenes that happen like much earlier than the book timeline starts. So someone was sending around emails that were called Daily Dracula, and you'd get basically it put back into completely chronological order. And it was a very interesting way of rereading this book as well. And also it was just so fun to read because of purely the memes that were coming out about this book, and lots of people were reading it for the first time in that way. It just gave me a whole new love and appreciation for this book, so that was a really fun experience to have, and I'm sure you could still find a way to do it in the chronological order, but also maybe just read it for the first time the way that it was actually written as well. So that's the original Gothic horror story, but also if you want something a little bit more current but still a little spooky, then I would really recommend trying Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, and this is the second book as well, Hellbent. So this is a fantasy series starting with Ninth House, and I really love these books. Basically in these books you're following a young freshman at Yale, and she basically is only at Yale for one reason, and that is to monitor the secret societies that go on underneath the cover of darkness. And the books start off with a mystery. Basically a dead body has been found, and Alex is trying to get involved to see if one of these many secret societies that work in the occult and the dark arts are to blame for this girl's murder. I just really enjoy how these are written. It's a lot of like literary references also, and it's like at times quite, I don't know, they're pretentious, but in a way of like being very well aware of their own pretension. It is dark academia, but in a way that actually truly feels dark as well. These secret societies are necromancers, they work with dark magic, and they're run by incredibly powerful people as well. So you also have the villains of the story that are the very rich and powerful, which is obviously very true to life as well. The second one was also just as good, or maybe slightly not as good. I can't actually remember. I need to like go back and look at my reviews because they've all blended into one. But these are really fun fantasy books that are urban fantasy. They are set in the current day on obviously the Yale campus. So it's like if you're not that into fantasy but you like gothic horror, if you like those horror aspects, then I would say definitely give these a go because it's kind of light on the fantasy world. It's not got a lot of world building obviously, but again, really fun, very atmospheric, very spooky. I think these are dark academia horror done right, so can definitely recommend, and a great pick for reading in the autumn time. So that's it for my purely spooky reads, ones that have horror elements in them. Next up, let's talk about a couple of books that are atmospheric books that I also love reading around this time as well. Firstly, we have to talk about one of my all-time favourite books, and that is Pyrenee Sea by Susanna Clarke. I absolutely loved this book when I read it, and I also desperately need to reread this again actually. This book is so atmospheric. You are following the character of Pyrenee Sea, who lives in the house, and the house appears to be made up of just endless corridors and vestibules that are all filled with statues, and Pyrenee Sea is the only one who lives in the house, but sometimes they get a visit by the other, who is the only other human person who comes to the house. Pyrenee Sea basically spends their day kind of filling up notebooks with their kind of observations about the house and about their mission to find the great and impossible truth. This is kind of a mystery story as well, but you are on this mystery journey with Pyrenee Sea, who's one of my favourite characters that I've ever read from. I just absolutely love them. They are kind and sweet and naive and endlessly curious. Everything in their eyes is just full of wonder. This one's not too long either. It won't take you a very long time. It's just such a fun experience to read this for the first time and try and figure out what is going on, because you're completely left in the dark along with Pyrenee Sea. But even while you don't know what's going on, you're just like falling in love with this world and this character as well. So can highly recommend this one for a fun atmospheric read, and if you haven't read it, just absolutely read it. You need to be reading this one. It's so good. Next up, more of a recent pickup for me, but one that just screams atmospheric, and that is Sea Scraper. This one I really loved from the Booker Prize longlist, and it was many people's top pick as well for the shortlist. The atmosphere of this book is really well depicted on the front cover. Basically, you're following this young man who works as a sea scraper. He pulls his carriage and horse along the beach and scrapes up shrimp from the surface. He has secret dreams in his heart. He wants to become a singer, and he's wondering about his father also, who he's never known. It's got a very haunting feel, and if you're looking for something also short, atmospheric, very beautifully written, will highly recommend Sea Scraper. This one did not make it onto the shortlist, which was disappointing, definitely, but that's why I also want to put it on this list, to say if you missed out reading this one, if you're reading any of the long list, then go back and get to this one. Also, it's a great time of year, I feel like, to read this one now. Next up in atmospheric reads is a book that I don't see talked about too often by quite a well-known author, and that is All's Well by Mona Awad. Bunny by the same author will appear on many such lists, like for reading around the autumn time, for spooky reads, for weird girl reads, but you don't often see people talking about All's Well. And I loved Bunny myself, but I also really loved this book too. So this is a book about a woman who basically constantly lives in excruciating pain, and she's kind of at breaking point. She has a failed marriage, she's becoming addicted to her pain medication, and then something happens that means that she is at risk of losing her job, and she works as a theatre director at a college. And basically, as she is struggling with this chronic pain, and she is determined to put on the play All's Well That Ends Well by Shakespeare at any cost, but she's having difficulties at every turn. The cast is insisting that they would rather do Macbeth, and just when she thinks that all is lost, she meets these very mysterious strangers who kind of are promising her that everything will work out in the end. This one is just quite creepy. I really enjoyed this main character, who is basically kind of an awful person, or has become an awful person through the circumstances of her life. This is another one of those books that you are never quite sure what's going on and what's real, which I really loved. It's got that creepy, foreboding atmosphere and a main character who's just kind of absolutely losing the plot. I also just always enjoy Mona Awad's writing as well. The balance of humor and like wit within the writing, with also just this really creepy atmospheric energy as well. So definitely check this one out. If you've read Bunny and you liked it, definitely try this one. Or maybe if Bunny was a little bit too kind of on the like sillier side, then maybe give this one a go as well. I really enjoyed it, so definitely would recommend All's Well. Also would recommend Bunny as well. Finally, let's just talk about books that are perfect for this time of year because of how cozy they are. Firstly, we have to talk about the original pioneer of cozy mystery fiction. That is Miss Agatha Christie herself. I love Agatha Christie, and also once you start reading Agatha Christie, you realize how much other authors have taken from Agatha Christie. She's the original author who, like I said, pioneered the cozy mystery genre, and there are so many places that you can start with Agatha Christie as well, but I just love reading them in the autumn and winter time. These books are so fun, they're so surprising, they also have that cozy energy to them. They're not very long. Also, I just love reading these with my friend Alice, where we try to guess the ending every single time, and honestly, we barely ever get 20% of the guesses through, and they just are absolutely wild once you try and figure out these stories along with the main detective. So there's two main different detective stories within the Agatha Christie world. There's the Poirot stories, which I've read a couple, and there's also the Miss Marple series, which I've read a lot of. Miss Marple is basically this adorable little old woman who knows so much about human nature because she sits in her garden in her village and just observes everybody. And she just uses her knowledge as being a little old woman and nosy and curious and interested in human nature, and she uses those skills to figure out murders. And you'd be surprised how many murders she gets herself mixed up in. One of my favorites is Crooked House, which actually is not a Miss Marple story, but just so much fun and such a surprising twist. Well, they all have surprising twists. It's not a spoiler to say that these have twists in them. You'll, even me saying that, you're never going to guess what they actually are. We also have They Do It With Mirrors, and The Murder at the Vicarage feels so classic to me. It feels classic Agatha Christie, and I really love this one. Maybe a fun place to start as well. And then also Nemesis, which is another Miss Marple one. Sorry mum, I stole all of these books from your shelves, and I'll probably steal more in the months to come as well, because I need more of Agatha Christie. I've read a lot more than just this stack. I've read, I don't know how many I've done. I've done most of the Miss Marple ones. I think me and Alice have done them mostly together. But I still have a lot of Poirot to read as well, who is a Belgian detective who is also eccentric in his own way. And they feel like slightly stranger stories than Miss Marple, maybe slightly less cozy, although it's all very cozy. I just absolutely love Agatha Christie, and you need to read some of her detective stories in the autumn time for maximum cozy vibes. Finally, I want to throw out a really rogue shout for you and recommend a children's book series that I just think is really, really fun to read. Also, I think it'll be good if you are behind on your reading goal and you want to read 13 books really, really fast, then you can start this series. And that series is a series of unfortunate events. I do have all 13 books. I'll just show you the first 3. You might have read these when you were young, and then to that I would say reread them now because they're absolutely delightful. Or even if you've never read them as a young person, I think you'll still get a lot out of these books. And I don't read that many children's fictions now, but oh my god, these are just so much fun. I honestly do credit these books to giving me a vocabulary, like not even a good vocabulary, just giving me a vocabulary when I was young, because they just are written in such a fun and entertaining way, and also do not ever kind of patronize the reader as like knowing that they're a child. But these are mystery stories as well. You are following the Baudelaire children, and basically they are surrounded by tragedy at every turn. The books start off in a very tragic way, and it just gets worse and worse almost for these children. And every time you think they're going to get a win, something awful happens to them. And it might sound like this is a really depressing books to read, and the blurbs would tell you that they are incredibly depressing and you shouldn't read the book, you should put it down right now. But they are so much fun, and I loved rereading these as an adult to try and figure out the mystery and what was going on, and just to follow the antics of these children. I think it's a great time to read them in the autumn time because they are cozy and they're atmospheric and they're a little bit spooky as well. Maybe if you're terrified of horror and you don't like looking for horror or thrillers or anything scary, but you still want to read something kind of along those lines, maybe these are the books to pick up for you, because it will give you all of that energy without being scary in any way, even though you're never actually sure what's going to happen in these books. And honestly, they don't really pull their punches with what happens to these children, because it's actually sometimes quite terrifying. Like, the villain in this story is truly a villain. Like, they don't pretend to be anything else other than an incredibly villainous character. So definitely pick these up for the autumn time. They're so much fun. And that is the 10 books / authors I wanted to recommend to you for some autumnal, spooky, cozy, atmospheric reading. So let me know if you have other ones that you would add to this list, because I would love the recommendations as well. And let me know if you have read any of these and what you thought about them too. I would love to say a huge, huge thank you to my Patreons. Thank you guys for making this the best place to be on the internet, for chatting to me, for being so supportive of me and of this channel. I love you guys so much. Maybe in the comments as well, could you tell me what kind of reader are you? Firstly, do you read seasonally or do you not? Do you kind of ignore that, which is fine either way? And if you do read seasonally, do you look for cozy books? Do you look for scary horrors, or do you kind of go somewhere in the middle and look for more atmospheric reads? I'd love to know, because I love a mix of everything. And I haven't actually got too much of a horror on my TBR for this month. So if you recommend one book to me, please recommend me something that's a little bit horror leaning, not full on something that's going to scare me, because I can't watch horror movies or anything like that. But based on this list, what's a book that you would recommend me? I would love to know that. But that is everything from me today. So thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.